For my brother, what I love, for myself only Allah do I worship and asking for help. Every day 5 times must I always pray. I am proud to be a Muslim now. Everyone say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasul.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace, blessings and mercy be upon you. You know, coming close to the end. And usually, as we come close to a conclusion, people have mixed emotions, mixed feelings. In relationships, a lot of times people struggle to terminate relationships. In counseling terms, people have a problem with closure. Right? How did the Sahaba deal with the death of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Umar ibn al-Khattab didn't believe it. Abu Bakr as-Siddiq stood firm, took leadership. Other Sahaba were some in the corners covering their heads. They could not believe the disaster. Closure. Closure is important. Because what happens when we don't acknowledge that the end is coming, we have unrealistic expectations that we've got enough time, sort of like our lives. When you think you're going to live forever, oh, I got all the time in the world to fix my relationship with mom and dad, or to fix my relationship with my child. Or when he's 7 years old, I'll start to teach him. Or when she's 15, we'll talk about certain things. As time goes by, as we're sensitive to the passage of time, as we become more aware that something needs to change. But as time starts to decrease, as that resource called time starts to be limited, what starts to happen inside of us? We start to feel anxious. We start to get stressed out. And so today's episode, my dear brothers and sisters, is about relaxing. It's about relaxing. What do you do to relax? The Prophet Muhammad ﷺ said that the coolness of my eye is in prayer. That was the best relaxation strategy for the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, to be in prayer. Does it work for you? What place would you love to be in that you don't want to leave? Think back to a time where you were engaging in an activity you did not want it to end. Something that you could perhaps do for hours and hours and hours, and you don't want it to stop. Chances are you have something called khushu' in that activity. You're fully, deeply concentrated, immersed within it, hypnotized, if you will. But you're in a state of relaxation. You could be working out, but you're in a state of relaxation. You could be studying and working, but you're in a state of relaxation. For the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ, it was prayer. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us in the Quran, Ya ayyuhan nas, innaka kadih, ya ayyuhal insan, innaka kadihun ila rabbika kadhan famulaqih. You are constantly struggling and struggling and working and working and working, but eventually you will meet your Lord. What will happen in that meeting? We are uncertain about. We don't know. Because the end of our lives has not come yet. So that's why we make the dua for husn al-khatimah. We beg Allah for a good ending. It's not in our control. And last week we talked about perfectionism. Or last session, sorry. We talked about perfectionism. Ihsan is to control the process. Negative perfectionism is when you think you can try to control the outcome. And watch what happens. When we're uncertain about something, it leads to anxiety. Right? Think about it. If all of a sudden lights went off, loud noises, you don't know what's happening, what's going to happen? Your anxiety increases. So when you're uncertain about something, it leads to anxiety. A high level of anxiety leads to fear. But if you're extremely certain about something, like you know exactly what the person's going to say, that leads to what? Boredom. And boredom usually leads to avoidance, as does fear. So our level of anxiety has to be somewhere between 0 and 100%. So anxiety is good. Anxiety is not always a bad thing. But once your anxiety starts to reach levels where it's uncomfortable and it's interfering with tasks and perhaps some of the signs of procrastination and negative perfectionism, that's when you need to stop and think to yourself, what am I uncertain about? What is it that I don't know that's causing these feelings or these thoughts? Make sense? Yeah? Good so far? So what type of strategies, what type of activities can you do to make sure that your anxiety is manageable? First things first, get organized. But what is the definition of organized? If I place something here, I know that if I want to come and grab it, it's still there. That's organized. Have you ever heard of the word organized chaos? You know, you walk into somebody's room, you can't know the pattern where things are, but that person knows exactly where they are. To them, it's organized. Correct? So as long as you've placed it in an order where you know if I need to recall it, it's there. So if you're studying for an exam, you know exactly where the specific topic is. Sometimes by looking at the index, right? Sometimes by exploring, like we were discussing, you want to find a topic in the Quran, you look to the index. Or you use a specific website to pull out a specific verse from the Quran. That's organized. You decrease the amount of time that it takes to retrieve what it is you want. That's one way to decrease that anxiety, that stress, knowing that something is coming to an end. You don't got time to waste. So things need to be organized and ready. Another is the time management. A lot of people talk about time management. And time management is extremely important. And we know as Muslims we need to be on time. And then people complain a lot, oh, they never start on time, this is such and such standard time and such standard time. And they criticize other people. Now, that's not what we're going to talk about. We're more strength-based, right? But if you are in a foreign country, there's a saying, Ya gharib kun adib, right? If you're a foreigner, a stranger, be respectful. Have good manners. Don't criticize people. Yeah, maybe they said 9, but really they meant 11. So as long as it's consistent, something that you can anticipate coming. Different story altogether. But we will talk about cross-cultural differences maybe in a different program. But for now, time management is really made up of 3 major factors. To-do lists. What is it that you need to do? Ideally, make them as small as possible. Check email. Respond to email. Something very simple so that you can get those check marks. Feel those small wins. You're getting closer to your goal. Schedules. An actual schedule. This is the 20 things I need to do. This is when I'm going to do them. This at 2, this at 3, this at 4, this at 5. And then priorities. Which one has to come first? So you're studying for an exam, you only got 5 hours for the exam, and all of a sudden, Isha prayer is called. Now you know you got lots of time to pray Isha. It's still permissible to pray it later. What do? How do you prioritize? What decisions do you make? So time management involves mainly to-do lists, schedules, and prioritization. And then you'll find millions of stuff out there online, books, programs, workshops, courses on time management. I would suggest follow whichever one works for you. But those 3 are the core of time management. So imagine your materials are organized, your time is organized. Now what? You need to finish a task. Next is committing. to that task. Let's use concentration. Okay? You're in class and you're learning something new. Sometimes what happens is we waste time not learning during the time of learning. So you're in class, most of the material is covered in class, but in your mind you're saying, you know what, I'll just read about this later. I got lots of time. Okay? When we talk about concentration, when we struggle with concentration, we feel anxious. We get nervous when you just can't concentrate. Have you ever had that happen to you? You're trying to read and you just cannot concentrate? Or you're trying to do something and you just can't focus? Or you're in prayer and you just can't stay focused? That causes some stress. I've read somewhere that the average person speaks about 120 words per minute. Okay? But the average person can comprehend how many words a minute? What do you think? 60? 120? So the average person can comprehend half of what you're saying. Does that make sense? Yeah, okay. Or does the average person comprehend all of what you're saying? No? Okay. You know what the answer is? You know, one barrier to concentration is wandering thoughts. I'll give you an example. You're still thinking about what the answer is, aren't you? Right? You're wondering. You're not concentrating on what I'm saying because you're saying, well, what is the answer? The answer is 4 times the amount a person can speak. What I'm speaking, you can concentrate on everything that I'm saying, plus more. So what's happening with the other parts of the brain? That's wandering thoughts. Wandering, you're thinking about something else. Another form of barriers to concentration are interruptions. People that interrupt, noises and stuff. Mental fatigue is a third. Your brain just gets so tired. You need to take a break. And another is psychological cues. So if you're studying on your bed and you start getting tired, chances are the cues around your bed say sleep. So be careful where you're studying, where you're conducting the task. When we come back from the break, we're going to talk about tips and strategies to overcome anxiety and to overcome stress. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah.
Why does Islam say, cover the, what is the purpose of our lives? When you go to the grave, the believer will be asked 3 questions. How many, destruction of marriages, of society, of family ties have come because of statements made on someone's tongue by what someone has said. What Sharia really is, think about it. We want you to think about it. Think about life. Think about your purpose in life. Think about the creator of this earth we live in. Think about how you should worship this creator and who this creator is. That's our aim behind this show here on Huda TV. Let's focus on what Islam itself says as a legal Islamic religious system.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. May Allah's peace, blessings, and mercy be upon you. So we're talking about stress and anxiety. They're very closely related. Sometimes we have barriers to concentration. When we can't concentrate, we get stressed. I want you to think about your role as a helper. Overcoming a difficulty or a struggle for somebody allows them to be less anxious and allows them to connect to their goals a little better, right? Now, when it comes to concentration, whether it's in prayer, in a specific task, studying, working, whatever it is, there are so many barriers to concentration. And I'm reminded of a while ago, I should say, I was making Umrah, except I had a serious toothache, a very serious toothache. And this was a persistent one for about a week. And even though the environment was perfect, all of the resources I needed were there. What I needed to do was clear. In other words, the motivation was there. The organization was there. The commitment was there. My tooth hurt, but I was still there. But something was missing. I wasn't relaxed. The toothache interfered with my tasks because I allowed it to not let me relax. I allowed it to cause me stress. And all I wanted to do was for this toothache to just go away so that I can get back to ibadah. But it didn't go away. Ever have a headache and just wish for the headache to go away? A headache, a toothache, a pain of any form can destroy even the happiest of moments. We have the opportunity sometimes to take away that pain from people by helping them. But going back to that tawaf, what I did, instead of focusing on the worship, I decided to reflect. I decided to dedicate the rest of that trip to reflecting on helping others. When you lose something, when you have a calamity in your life, ask yourself what it would feel like for somebody to come and alleviate that difficulty from you. Take away that pain, just even for a moment. You'll start to understand how other people are feeling. But more importantly, you'll know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is watching. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will reward it. So as a Muslim, our identity, one of our core values is to help others. But how? How do you help others concentrate? How do you help others study if that's the task they need to do? How do you help others do what it is they need to do? You need to help them to relax. Because if you're not in a relaxed state, you're not going to be able to think properly. You're not going to be able to sustain the motivation. It's going to impact everything else. Now some people might say, no, you're wrong. I'm best when there's only 6 hours left for the exam. Yeah, but you're still relaxed in a certain way. When I mean non-relaxed, I mean you're so anxious, you can't concentrate on anything. There was a young man that I did some therapy with. He was perhaps one of the worst youth in the entire city that I lived in. He was not only incarcerated for several years, but within the prison, he was on a unit for the worst youth, and within that unit, he was confined to his room. He was not allowed to leave, not allowed to interact with others. Nobody liked to do counseling with him. He had poor social skills. See, even though it was above my role or my competency to deal with the serious issues, one thing I identified is that the young man did not know how to relax. He was always anxious. We weren't addressing necessarily the source of the problem, but we were addressing some of the symptoms. So at least he can have a few extra days of enjoyment within his life until more therapy can ensue and professionals can work more on the source of his problems. We did relaxation techniques, something called progressive muscle relaxation. If you feel your body is stressed, if you guys can make a fist, like y'all to make a fist, make a strong fist, like, I mean, squeeze it hard. That's stress. Now release. That's relaxation. We want to help take people from this to this. Sometimes we have to help ourselves in overcoming impulsivity, right? But also, we have to help ourselves in overcoming those fears that we have. You know what I mean? You know when there's a task that you really need to do, but something is holding you back. When it comes to concentration, think about the last prayer you had. Imagine that was your last one. You know, many times we're reminded before the prayer, pray as though this was your last prayer. If the last prayer you prayed was the last prayer you made, would you be content? Would you be happy with that being your last prayer? If the answer is no, ask yourself, why not? I should have concentrated more. Why didn't you concentrate more? Now you start understanding your own barriers. So my suggestion to you today is next prayer, pray as though it was your last prayer. And then hopefully that prayer can be perfect. You can do it with ihsan, everything necessary. You're organized, motivated to do it. You're committed. You've learned how to pray and properly. And you're relaxed. Clear, right? MOCLR, just to remember. Be motivated, organized, committed with concentration, learning and relaxation. You're relaxed. Hopefully that will be the best prayer you've ever made. Then you can remind yourself, pray like I just did. So pray as though it was your last prayer or your last prayer. But identify those things that are taking you away from concentration. Sometimes we need to push ourselves. We're afraid to move forward. And we need to give ourselves self-messages. Like, come back. If your thoughts are wandering, tell yourself, focus. Focus. You need to talk to yourself. Like Abdullah ibn Rawaha in one of the battles. The banner was laying there. He needs to pick it up. And he knows he needs to pick it up. But he hesitated. Think of you, your own task, your own massive task, the thing that you have to achieve. And it's right there in front of you, and you need to pick it up, but something is holding you back. Now, Abdullah ibn Rawaha was in a different situation than you probably are. He was in a battle. Meaning, if he picks up the banner, likely he's going to die. And so, he had to engage in some self-talk. He said, أَقْسَمْتُ يَا نَفْسِي لَتَنْزِلِنَّ أَوْ لَتُقْرِهِنَّ I swear you're going to do it. He's telling himself, I swear you're going to do it. You're going to do this. Whether you like it or not, you're going to do it. قَدْ أَقْبَلَ النَّاسُ وَشَدُّ الرَّنَّ مَا لِي أَرَاكِ تَقْرَهِينَ الْجَنَّةِ It's time. Now's the time. People move forward before you. Why are you not doing it? Don't you want success? Imagine how much he's saying to himself. And we can identify, we can pull out just one of these things to tell ourselves. But there's a back and forth movement. Then he says, if you do what they did, he's talking about the others. If you move forward and do what they did, you will be doing the right thing. وَمَا تَمَنَّيْتِ فَقَدْ أُعْطِيتِ. And what you're dreaming of, your life purpose, what you want in your life, is right there. Maybe a few moments of self-talk is all it takes for us to really push ourselves forward. Maybe that's all it takes. You just have to rally up all the energy that you have and overcome that first step. Because unfortunately, the style of procrastination that we discussed, keep putting it away, it just takes one step. It just takes one good prayer. Sometimes all it takes is one sincere act for the sake of Allah, and that will be your entrance into paradise. Sometimes we do so many actions, we forget which ones were sincere and which ones weren't. So, for our audience, I'd like to close with something called the Amana calculator. The Amana calculator. These are our priorities in life. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we need to use our existence to submit to Allah. That is what it means to be a Muslim. But you know what? We are constantly struggling and struggling and struggling. And we will meet our Lord like an escalator. Do whatever you want on the escalator. Eventually it's going to end. And I think it's extremely important for us to understand what that end will look like. And if you don't know where to start with any one of those priorities that I just mentioned. But if you do know what to start with, then I would advise you, take 5 minutes after this show, unless there's a really good show after it, then we know the exception. Take 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, and engage yourself in the act that you're preventing yourself from doing. Just take 5 minutes and start. And watch what starts to happen. A lot of aspects begin to show themselves. You'll start to realize that all you needed to do was just start. So ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make our first and last steps the best ones. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
I only love for my brother what I love for myself. Only Allah do I worship and ask Him for help. Every day 5 times must I always pray. I am proud to be a Muslim now. Everyone say La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah. La